I just wanted to touch base with you real quick, kind of just have a little bit of a catch up moment with you. Talk a little bit on like your experience work with us, like where you're at right now. I know you've been dropping some massive wins in the community. And I'm super proud to see your success so far, and I'm excited to see what this year's got to bring. But I really just want to take a few minutes with you and just kind of see your experience on like prior to working with us and like where you're at right now, and kind of go from there. Kind of just take it one step at a time, kind of go from there. But if you can, why don't you introduce yourself? Obviously, it's going to be kind of like a podcast style type thing, but introduce yourself, tell us a little bit where you're from, and we'll kind of start there.
Yeah, so my name is Arden and I'm living in the Bay Area in California. Obviously, that's Silicon Valley is actually where I work, and it's one of the highest performing and highest cost of living area probably in the United States, dubbed for I think this year and last year, and probably going to continue
Wow.
that way. But yeah, that's kind of my background. I'm an electrical engineer working in a lot of data centers, kind of doing design work for them, and it's obviously widespread in the entire nation. And finding alternative ways to diversify income has always been something I've been passionate about. And I've done like the stocks thing. I've done a couple side hustles here before, but nothing really panned out super successful until like the arbitrage. So
Yeah.
Airbnb arbitrage is actually a huge change and much different pace. But I also think the playbook that we had given in the Arbitrage Empire, huge, like just way better, higher quality, more efficient. And I think that's kind of just what sold me on the whole thing. And everything that was like
Yeah.
presented at the very beginning was
Mm.
pretty on par with like what I expected and like met more than exceeded my expectations actually. But if it's like face value, it's like it's all there.
Yeah. Love it, dude. Well, I appreciate that. And listen, like, I'm here to kind of talk about your journey so far. And like you said, I'm super excited to see like how far you came already in such a short amount of time. Obviously, when you got into this, like, what's going to like happen overnight, but to see in like
Yep.
such a short period of time where you are now, we'll kind of dive into deeper here in a little bit
Yep. Yep.
on actually your progress. But I guess talk to me like prior to where you were, right before working with us and the Arbitrage Empire, prior to what you were doing. I know you're still obviously working, but obviously your goals and why you looked into starting this. And talk to me a little bit about where you were prior compared to like where you are today.
Yeah, so I think prior I was definitely more worried about finances than I ever was. At this point in time, I think there's a better future ahead. There's things lined up in terms of like, oh wow, like scalability, potential increase in finances, and so I'm still kind of not so much mid-career yet, but early in my career, but also like very early career entrepreneurially wise. And I think trying to take that still pretty seriously in a way that's like I want to be a good steward of that time and that projection, but also excited and like diving straight in. So I think before I was definitely like more 9 to 5 minded, more like thinking about like, oh, clocking in, clocking out, getting my hours up, which, I think there's types of people for that. People are built that way. And from a very early age, and even like panning into my early career, my main job, I always knew I was never like molded that way. So I couldn't fit. And I could do it, you know what I mean? But I think
Yeah.
after joining the Arbitrage Empire, my entrepreneurially minded self kind of really came off. Like it was like I really like had a good groove, had a good feeling, had a good momentum, and really motivated,
Mhm.
honestly. And like I think that just kind of renewed my mind as I had
Yeah.
stepped into it and kind of executing now. And I've only been live for this is my third month being live, but man, like it's kind of crazy, like what I'm seeing numbers wise, and like
Yeah.
just excited to see how I can scale up from here. But it's still very early on, and like I haven't even been through a slow season in Phoenix, but we'll be excited to see how that pans out. So
For sure. And you'll be totally fine. Like, obviously, like the results you're getting now, you're gathering so much data to help you with pricing. And
yeah,
obviously, I know you're working a lot with Andrew on the pricing model itself to obviously get ahead of slow season, obviously find that booking lead time for you to stay on top of that so you can continue scaling and getting closer to, the goals of what you and I first spoke upon, like before you kind of joined. And I remember to this day, you mentioned to me that you're super family oriented, like you and your brother, like are here to like help your family out and your parents,
yep.
alongside you obviously supplementing the great career that you have already right now. So it's just awesome to see that. But I guess talk to me, like I know you dropped a massive win in the community, and I'm actually going to share my screen and kind of pull it up here.
Yep.
That you posted a week ago about your first full month, right, operating on Airbnb. So this past January 2026, and you did over $10,000, which is just amazing. Super glad to see that. I guess walk me through a little bit on your expectations prior to like you having that massive month, and then actually to like where you are now and like the feeling that you have. Obviously,
Yeah.
there's more work to be done, and we
Right.
got a bright future ahead to continue scaling and continue increasing this number month after month. But talk to me a little bit on like how you're feeling after this and like your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a huge win. It's like right off the
Yeah.
bat, 2026, it's like boom, starting off with these numbers. Like I already seen it kind of climbing through as I was like kicking off 2026 and the
Hmm.
reservations, pricing is an art. I totally understand that thematically and like really applying that though, not just keeping it as head knowledge, but actual application. I think I really like
Yeah.
got a real good understanding of that through not just December, but January. I think December
Hmm.
I only operated for half that month, but I got about
Yeah.
I think I just broke even for rent like that month and a little bit
Hmm.
came out of pocket, but I was like, man, if I could do this for half a month, I was making like I think post fees, post tax was like 4,000. What would
Yeah.
January look like? And then
Hmm.
January just finished like a couple weeks ago. I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
this is crazy. And it's all
Yeah.
because of the pricing. And I think my pricing, I've tweaked it here and there,
Hmm.
catered it towards the area and like kind of what I've noticed and adjusted in terms of like all my little nuanced things.
Sure.
But yeah, I think the pricing is pretty much one to one in terms of like the strategy that
Yeah.
Arbitrage Empire had, and that was a huge and foundational base for me. So
Yeah, that's awesome. I was gonna ask you too, like, what do you think's been the biggest driving force in the program that we've helped you with to achieve such a massive month like that, your first full month in
yep,
Airbnb
yep,
with two properties? Am I correct, or three?
three.
Three, yeah, three
Yep.
properties, right? Um, Again, obviously we got a bright year ahead, and obviously we're gonna continue with this momentum and keep pushing the pedal to the floor. But for you, like, what has been like that massive driving force, coaching wise on our behalf that allowed you to really achieve like a month like that, a milestone?
Yeah, I would definitely say the weekly interviews that we had, or sorry, not the weekly
Mhm.
interviews. I would say the weekly sessions, but like there were
Yeah,
4 sessions a week. Th
yeah,
those are huge because if you're not actually like, you can do the videos, you can do the courses, you can listen to the Slack, listen to the voice memos, see the texts and whatnot. But I
yeah.
think in terms of it's a game, it's an art, and you got to actually practice for
Hmm.
that. And I think those sessions that are like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday are huge because you're actually practicing. You're actually applying
Yeah,
what you know, and you're actually like being able to interface with people who are also kind of in the same category, maybe a little bit behind, maybe a little bit ahead. But you're kind of seeing different vantage points of like, okay, this person's doing this, or and if Andrew's like facilitating the meeting, he's doing it this way, and how could I apply it from there, or get this
yeah.
tip or that tip, or like just engaging in conversation too has been super huge. So without that
Hmm.
fact, that human factor, that can never be taken away, at this
Sure.
point in time. Um, at least, until AI gets crazier.
Sure,
But
sure.
yeah, that's where it's
Yeah,
at for me.
love it, dude. And listen, that leads me to my next point, right? Like you made a really good valid point, right? Like, hey, you can only do so much with like the information, right? The videos, the courses, all these things that are out there. And listen, like between you and me, like all the information's out there for free about anything, right? ChatGPT nowadays, YouTube, right? So I think the biggest driving force on top of like what you're saying is not so much just having that information, but also like the implementation part, right? The guidance part,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
To kind of build this layer of the business one by one, step by step, and more so importantly, having that confidence and certainty to do it correctly,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So I guess for you having, of course, the information, but now the implementational side of things, right? Those weekly group Zoom meetings, right? Hammering pricing, making sure, okay, hey, we're on cue to our average daily rate to make sure bookings are continuously coming in. We're hitting those targets. How has that affected, your progress in this and allowed you to really get to where you are today on top of, yeah, the information stuff, but adding in now the one-on-one support and that guidance?
Yeah, with the one-on-one support that they kind of get walked through, and then also the group calls. Like I think that's a very important aspect for starting any business and doing any great work because you
Yeah.
gotta like if you're not getting that encouragement, that confidence from another human, like you can only get so far. And for me, like I'm a very sociable, like kind of extroverted person. I'm more of like an introverted extrovert. But like when I get
Yeah.
going, I get going. And when I get in flow, I get
Sure.
flow. Like these old trading cycles that we can hit in the day neurologically like is huge towards like your success. And a part of that is not just like knowing the information, but also being in the room with people who know the information way ahead of you or maybe even behind, but like interfacing together and being communal
Yeah.
and like talking as
Yeah.
people because that's just like the nature of like how we interact anyway. So
Sure.
right now
Yeah.
like it's that's probably like the biggest thing and I think people archetypally that also think similar to me, I think it'd be huge for them
Yeah.
too. And it
Yeah.
helps people get out of their shell too. Like at first I was like, oh man, like how do I do this? Like maybe like I'm gonna ask a dumb question, but once you get going, it's like you just kind of snowball from there, and you just got to get in the right
Totally.
spaces. And Yeah, these are
Yeah,
perfect spaces.
for sure. That's the nail on the head there. And for you, like even to kind of go off on a different, topic here, right? You obviously
Yep.
scaled to three properties aggressively. And clearly you didn't like use your own money for that, even though like you have a really good, well-paying job right now, right? But you did leverage the bank's money to actually like scoop those up and now have like instead of one Airbnb, cash flowing, now you got three, right? It's a massive difference. You got three assets that are cash flowing. Talk to me a little bit on like how you basically leveraged the bank money, how you basically started off with three properties instead of, some people that just start with one.
Yeah, there's it was a very interesting part of the or early part of the when forming the LLC. I had come into it, I was like, well, I don't know how much credit they're gonna give me. I think I have pretty good credit over 750, and I am gonna go to Bank of America because I've been with them for since I was 13, so like over
Yep.
14 years, 13 years at this point. So
Hmm.
I think I have good repertoire with them, so I'll just go with them. And
Yeah.
I think seeing or sorry, that was for my business bank account and like setting up the business side. But then applying my credit score and whatnot through from my business to the actual like Chase and Amex, they liked me. So they wanted to give me something good at the beginning. So it seemed like it was a huge line of credit. And yeah, 15K from Chase and 10K from Amex. So that was super solid. And
Yeah.
being able to have that freedom to just use like, OPM, other people's money, which is the banks, that kind of gave me like the full green light, especially with 0% APR for a year. And I'm still kind of on
Hmm.
that right now, like for about next 7, 8 months. It's huge breathing room. Like I got things I
Yeah.
got to do in my regular life. I'm like still doing 9 to 5, like supporting my family. I now have a
Hmm.
fiance and like it's a huge future ahead. And like there's so much to be
Yeah.
had and to be done right now. But
Yeah.
um, you can't do that when you don't have capital, but instead using the
Yeah.
capital from the bank without, not necessarily risk-free entirely, but giving that year of breathing room, but off rip having that 25K, huge for me. And that gave me
Yeah.
the confidence to have a good headspace of like, hey, I don't got to worry right now. I got a year to make this happen. So let's make this happen.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that's
For
kind of how it
sure.
felt. Yeah, and it makes me feel good.
Yeah, love that, dude. That's huge. All right, cool, dude. Well, I guess talk to me a little bit on like your future goals, right? Now, okay, hey, we're, in the second month of the year, kind of just started, Q1 still, right? Talk to me a little bit on like your expectations through this year. Obviously, you're going to continue scaling, continue cash flowing and building this up, but talk to me about like your future goals and what the future looks like for you with this.
Yeah, I think so. Future wise, I was maybe going a little bit too ambitious. I was almost going to scale without the proper capital, but I think I could have done it. But I think at this point in time, it kind of doesn't make sense for me, at least towards the end of high season. I don't want to just like put myself in that situation where I'm even in more debt. And then, so
Sure.
the main thing is paying off the debt, making sure by September time, which is like this year, fully debt free. I have the potential to do a cash balance transfer for whatever's remaining, or get a new 0% APR card, or whatever that looks like, to then scale up huge again, probably towards the end of the year.
Yeah.
So that would be my goal. I don't know exactly. I can't tell you like how many or like what my numbers are
Sure.
because still going through the high season, putting all that back into the business where I'm like, yeah, either changing some small nuances with whatever
Mhm.
coordination with the cleaning and maintenance team, or
Yeah.
just going ahead and paying off my debt. So those are probably my main targets, at least through the slow season. And
Hmm.
after the slow season, which for Phoenix, it's towards the end of August, I think. Maybe August
Yeah.
starts picking up. I want to make sure I'm in a good spot so I'm not caught off guard when I'm like towards the end of my 0% APR where I'm like gonna get start hitting with those
Sure.
high interest rates. So trying to avoid that. That's the main thing. So as long as I can
Yeah.
stay through the journey, as long as I'm away from the interest rates and
Hmm.
I'm debt free, then I'm also in a place to scale.
Hmm.
Those three, I think, I'm what I'm looking for primarily. And if I can do that
Yeah.
successfully, that'll be huge. Yeah.
Which you are, right? Like on track right now to obviously like pay that card off in full, like with the three properties you have running, like okay, throughout the year, right? Where you're going now in the trajectory. How much are you profiting right now, like per unit, like in January? Like what'd you profit per property, just on
Yes.
average?
Yeah. January was like 6K profit, pure profit. Yeah.
Wow.
After then that, I mean, and I have 4 doors, so it's 3,200, so 800 per door on the pricing that we have for the calculator and like kind of how I've been pricing.
Yeah.
So it's been 2x basically from what I had expected initially. And February is also
Yeah.
looking pretty good right now. I think February is where I just hit like the 3,200 average, and then like I'm probably gonna make a little bit more too. So not as much
Yeah.
as January, but yeah, it's looking pretty good. So
Heck yeah, dude. And of course, obviously, it's like, hey, stay on top of pricing, making sure, hey, we are still following that booking lead time, which I know you have developed a really good, robust, process and how to go about that. Now learning and taking the data from
Yep.
previous bookings, applying that in the future, being okay, yeah, people are willing to pay X amount to stay here, and now like price testing, ceiling, floor to maximize profits. And that I think that was the biggest thing that I was telling you is like, yeah, like the vacational properties do well, but it's like, hey, we found a niche like on Airbnb where it's like, hey, serving these corporate professionals and yeah, serving vacationers once in a while to fill up those gaps in the calendar to hit that 100% occupancy months, 95% occupancy months. But excuse me, finding that niche of serving these corporate professionals to allow us to stay booked full year, year round to hit those 800 to $1,000 profit per bedroom door. Talk to me a little bit on like what you've seen, right? Occupancy rate, serving the clientele that obviously you're hosting now through your properties and the way that we're doing pricing. Talk to me a little bit on that.
Yeah, so for the January month, I had over a 95% occupancy rate for all three units, so
Nice.
that was huge. And
Yeah.
primarily, whether I lost money or I didn't, or I gained a lot of money, like aside from that, I
Yeah.
got a lot of great reviews. And I think that
Hmm.
was a primarily one of the big things I was looking for was like, okay, even if I lose a little bit of money on this day, as long as I'm building lead time, I'm getting booked ahead,
Yeah.
I'm getting high occupancy, I'm gonna get these reviews going. And I'm catering towards each
Sure.
guest very intentionally and
Hmm.
seen a ton of young, like kind of younger mid-career professionals that are like going in and out of Phoenix, and
Yeah.
that was primarily a lot of like the guests that I've had. A lot of the in-between stays though have been like kind of shorter length stays, within like less than a
Hmm.
week. Have been like maybe traveling people, kind of
Yeah.
quick reservations and going after. So,
Sure.
those have been also pretty good. And I'd say maybe half of my reviews, I have like I think I have a 4.88 now on
Nice.
average, seven 5 stars, one 4 star.
Nice.
And I think it's pretty good because I haven't had anything below that. And half of them have been actually more than half of my guests actually have been like career professionals. So it's been
Yeah.
good. It's been very good.
That's awesome, dude. Well, listen, I love it, man. And listen, I wanted to really use today to kind of just really walk with you on your journey of like where you were before to where you are now in such a short amount of time. Right? This isn't like we first met like a year ago. You're only working with us for, I don't know, what, 6 months maybe?
This
If
is
that.
6 months. Yeah. This is
Yeah,
not
six
even six
months.
months. Yeah.
I think I looked and it was like around five. So it's
Yeah.
just great to see, obviously, that exponential return that you're taking the not only just the information, but the implementation, like I said, from us
Absolutely.
here and applying that to get the results you got now. And it's just amazing to see. So listen, I love to see it. Like it's just super, super heartwarming to see where you've came from to where you are now. And like I said, like obviously the job's not done. Like you're just getting started. So I'm super excited to see what the future holds for you and kind of go from there. But I guess last question, we'll leave it off with this is, I guess, talk to me on your overall experience working with us. I know we kind of broken it up into sectors and touched on like pricing, the guidance, the one-on-one, the weekly group Zoom calls. But I guess like overall, your experience with us, like what would you tell someone that is maybe on the fence and has been wanting to do Airbnb arbitrage, is just maybe a little bit fearful to take that leap of faith? What would you kind of tell that person?
Yeah, that's a good question because I feel like I was in that boat too. Maybe
Yeah,
I have some natural charisma, natural like confidence, but it also depends like what kind of person you are. But I would say whether you have not as much confidence or as much confidence, regardless, I think entering the Arbitrage Empire, they bring that confidence out of you. And even better if you have that already, but if you don't have that, it's like this is a place to be able to get that confidence out of you thoroughly and really like, push you because it's like there's just so many resources open, so many potential for like the calls that would like suit your needs for whatever questions you have. And the one-on-ones for the first 120 days, absolutely huge, asking all the questions I need to ask and like being able to have those kind of people that were knowledgeable in that and have done it for, a couple years, a couple more. And like
yeah,
that's huge to be able to have that implemented human interaction.
yeah.
So I thought it was yeah, overall just a great experience and I would recommend it for anybody who like if anything just needs a confidence boost in like the entrepreneurial world.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great, dude. That's great advice. And I wanted to ask you like that specifically because I think it's so important for other people to see I'm no different than you, right? To get to
Hmm.
where I
Hmm.
am and vice versa. And maybe someone who's going to be watching this is no different from us,
Yeah,
right? It's
yeah,
just about, of course, finding a little bit of that confidence to build up and finding that correct person that fits them, of course, to work with, right? That's
yeah,
super important.
absolutely.
But just giving someone that extra nudge to be like, yeah, you can do this. Like as long as you put your mindset to it and find the right person to achieve these goals that you're setting out for yourself. So I love that. And listen, like I said, I wanted to utilize the time today to just catch up with you, talk a little bit about your experience with us. And it's just really heartwarming to see where you came from. So keep crushing it, dude. And yeah, dude, love to see it. All right.
All right, talk to you later. Thank you.
All right, Arden. No
Bye.
problem. Take care.